to suppress the bandits, but still hadn't returned. Yet they asked me, someone eager to make contributions, to speak on his behalf. I had just had the shell fragment removed from my leg and refused their request. I even dragged my injured leg to the records office and tore up our marriage application myself. After all, when Michael Liu heard the distress call from his white moonlight, Emily, at the radio station, he immediately split his forces to rush to their aid. He even flashed the headlights of the military jeep to calm her down. But that exposed my coordinates as a reconnaissance soldier. He thought delaying the mission by an hour didn't matter, but ensuring Emily's safety did. If he didn't mind the delay, then why should I speak up for him? Captain Liu's troops only returned with you, someone said. Headquarters has urged us 3 times now. I had already submitted a report the same day I delivered the crucial intel. A sharp pain tore through the wound on my leg, where the shell casing had been removed, reminding me of everything I had just endured. Was it because the regiment commander had praised me that they now wanted me to make excuses for Michael Liu? Someone's face flushed with embarrassment at my rejection. He's your fiancé, they said. He must have failed this mission because he was trying to save you. The losses were significant. Someone has to take responsibility. Besides, the timing of the operation was based on the intel you provided. If there was an error, the mission wouldn't have started at dawn. My reconnaissance report was handed to the regiment yesterday afternoon, more than 10 hours before the operation. I said, if there was a problem with the intel, why did Michael Liu proceed with the original plan? He's the captain of the 2nd Battalion. He was the commanding officer. My voice trembled from anger and pain, but each word rang out clearly in the quiet hospital room, striking like a hammer. Everyone fell silent, exchanging uneasy glances. But Captain Liu only acted because of your distress signal, someone tried to explain. He received a distress signal from Emily, not me, I interrupted coldly. He disregarded the bigger picture for that woman, reallocated forces without authorization, and exposed our position. I forced myself to lift my injured legs slightly. A senior officer quickly stepped in. Captain Liu hasn't returned to duty yet. We're not going to make judgments based solely on your account. We know your wedding was postponed due to this campaign. Captain Liu mentioned you were unhappy with the operation, but husband and wife are one. You should stand up for him right now. Help explain things to headquarters, admit some fault, shoulder part of this. It'll benefit everyone. Fiancé. Husband and wife are one? And Michael Liu was going around saying I was unhappy? I nearly laughed from the absurdity of it. When Emily and Michael Liu were acting all lovey-dovey in front of everyone, none of them seemed to think we were one. No one cared whether I had grievances. But now, when there was blame to take, I suddenly became the inescapable fiancé. I tore up our marriage application with my own hands, I said flatly. I won't take the fall for him. The officer's face darkened. Julia Lane, you're being too stubborn. Do you understand what this means? You're making Captain Liu look bad. What will the entire battalion think of him? And of you? You're ruining your own reputation. Compared to the consequences of a failed suppression operation, a reputation means nothing, I replied. There's no need to say more. I've already submitted the report to headquarters. There's no room for personal arguments in it. Instead of pestering me, why don't you go check on how Michael Liu is doing? The room finally fell silent. At that moment, a guard rushed in to report, Captain Liu has returned. He's on his way to headquarters to make his report. Everyone let out a sigh of relief. Some even glanced at me with a hint of glee in their eyes, as if to say, Michael Liu is back. You're in trouble now. I remembered how I had reported to the commander while injured. His expression had been grave and solemn. Julia Lane, you must ensure your report is objective and accurate. Every single word must stand up to scrutiny. If the inspection team comes down and finds any inaccuracies or intentional omissions, you'll face a military tribunal. That report was my proof of innocence, but also a blade hanging over my head. If Michael Liu twisted the facts and those so-called witnesses all pointed their fingers at me, it could push me into irreversible ruin. And I couldn't even blame myself for doubting that Michael might lie. Until yesterday, I would never have believed that he'd delay the operation just to rescue Emily. And that was early this morning. The operation began in the midst of a torrential downpour. Every soldier in the 2nd Battalion followed the plan to close in on the target from all sides. As a reconnaissance officer, I gripped the encrypted topographic map tightly, preparing to cross the minefield. According to our strategy, Michael Liu was supposed to lead his team at 4 a.m. to neutralize the firepower stationed at Position 4. We all knew how crucial this mission was. If successful, it would completely wipe out the enemy presence in the region. Suddenly, Emily's voice crackled through the radio. "Michael, help me. Our performing troops convoy was ambushed." Her voice trembled with panic, almost sobbing. "I'm so scared." My heart sank. The coordinates of the troops' planned route overlapped precisely with my withdrawal path. "Julia, give me your radio," Michael said. His voice was calm but brooked no argument. "No." I clutched the device tightly. "The encirclement operation is about to begin. You can't." "Julia, this isn't the time to be jealous. Comrade Emily is in danger." He cut me off, a mocking smile playing at his lips. "Ever since Emily got here, you've been acting strange. Civilian lives matter more than your petty feelings." "You're the one acting strange, Michael Liu," I snapped. "This operation has been in planning for over a year. How can you throw it aside just because Emily sent out a distress call?" Rain streamed down my face. I couldn't tell whether it was water or tears. Seeing that I still wouldn't hand over the radio, Michael grew anxious and lashed out. "You know damn well that if Emily hadn't been chosen for the troop, I never would have settled for someone like you. You should be grateful to even have a shot at marrying me." I froze. I hadn't expected him to blurt out something like that, all in the name of protecting her. "Don't forget," he added coldly, "our marriage application hasn't even made it to the final approval. I can still pull it any time." The application had been submitted over 6 months ago, and still no approval. Of course. Emily had arrived around that time under the pretense of entertaining the troops. Michael must have deliberately stalled the process. Now that his white moonlight was back, how could he possibly bring himself to marry someone else? A sharp pain tore through my chest. Together, Michael and I had completed countless grueling missions, driven by our shared belief in protecting our country. We'd walked side by side along this border so many times, but in the end, none of that could compare to Emily's sweet smile and gentle waist pressed up against him. Michael suddenly lunged forward and tried to snatch the radio from my hands. "Julia, Emily can't be harmed. I won't let anything happen to her. I swear I'll be back within the hour. I won't miss the assault window. Just wait for my signal." I removed the pocket watch hanging around my neck. It was the token of affection he'd once given me. He had said it was the most precious keepsake his grandfather left him. I handed it back to him, my voice steady, without a trace of emotion. "Since you're so determined to go save her, then let's call off the engagement." "You're being ridiculous again," he muttered. He stuffed the watch into his pocket, casually patted my shoulder, and said dismissively, "When I get back with Emily, I'll explain everything." As I watched him turn and walk away without a second's hesitation, I suddenly realized something. In his heart, I had never been the most important person. The rain fell harder. I tightened my grip on the topographic map and continued forward through the darkness, according to plan. On the cliff across the way, the headlights of a military jeep sliced through the curtain of rain, flashing 3 times in a row. My heart skipped a beat. 3 flashes. It was one of the backup signals we had practiced before. Safe passage confirmed. "Move quickly." It was Michael. He was really waiting for me. Maybe he still cared about the mission after all. I no longer hesitated. I quickened my pace and dashed toward the exposed clearing ahead. The terrain was treacherous, steep cliffs on both sides. If I were discovered, there'd be nowhere to hide. Bang! A gunshot tore through the rain-soaked night. Pain exploded in my right leg, and my balance gave out. I stumbled, falling into the darkness, unable to control my body. As my consciousness began to fade, I mustered the last of my strength to look up. Under the blinding glow of the jeep's headlights at the top of the cliff, I saw a tall figure holding a petite woman tightly in his arms. There was no mistaking that silhouette. It was Michael Liu and Emily. The headlights illuminated his face as he leaned down to comfort her. That tender expression on his face. I had never seen it before. So those 3 flashes weren't a signal meant for me at all. They were his way of guiding Emily to safety, telling her which path was clear. He had used the code we had agreed on, the one meant for life or death missions, to lure me straight into an ambush. It felt like the bullet had pierced not just my leg but my heart as well, shattering it completely. Fortunately, after tumbling a short distance, I got wedged between several slick, mossy rocks. "Help!" I cried out weakly, clinging to a sliver of hope. Maybe Michael had just lost his mind for a moment. Maybe he'd hear my voice. Maybe he'd come back for me. "Michael, I think I heard something over there." Emily's voice echoed faintly through the rain. "I'm scared." "Don't be. I've got you," he answered. Their voices grew more distant, and soon the Jeep's headlights disappeared into the storm. My cries for help were drowned out by the relentless rain. Despair surged up, threatening to consume me. I struggled to sit up, but searing pain from my right leg made my vision swim in and out of blackness. "No, I can't die here." I bit down hard, ripped off my sleeve, and tightly bound my upper thigh to stop the bleeding. As I groped around the rocks nearby, searching for something to brace against, my fingers touched a small, hard object. Under the faint pre-dawn light, I saw it was a fragment of a battery, its deep green casing scuffed but still bearing a few faded letters. My heart skipped a beat. This battery model was part of a new internal issue radio set, exclusive to our military region's performing troop. What was it doing here? I glanced toward the muddy ground beside me, freshly washed by the rain. There, clearly outlined in the dirt, was a footprint. A specific kind, one I had seen before on the sole of Emily's performance shoes. She had once told me the soles were specially designed with extra grip for stage safety. A terrifying thought burst into my mind. The rehearsal convoy, the radio battery, the custom shoe print. I suddenly recalled a moment just a few days ago, when I had gone to deliver something Michael asked me to pass on to Emily. Her makeup case was half open on her bedside table, and I had caught a glimpse of a small, black, cylindrical object that looked a lot like a microfilm canister. At the time, I hadn't thought much of it. But now, the memory sent cold sweat pouring down my back. This is serious. Michael had been deceived by her. Not only could the ambush plan have been leaked, but I might now be the only one who knows the truth. This intel must be delivered. Now, immediately. But Michael had taken my radio. Once again, despair coiled tightly around my chest like frozen vines. I forced myself to stay calm. I was a reconnaissance officer. The fate and hope of the 2nd Battalion lived inside me. I carefully used a bandage to press a transfer print of the footprint. I clutched the battery fragment tightly in my palm. These were evidence. I had to survive. I had to get the truth out. Fumbling through the mud, I found a wooden stick and used it to prop myself up, dragging my wounded leg inch by inch uphill. Just as I was about to collapse, my fingers touched something cold and metallic. It was a shattered military radio. Battered, casing cracked, antenna broken. Hands trembling, I attempted to rewire it, switching channels over and over until a burst of static finally gave way to a voice from headquarters. "Red River, confirm your coordinates." As the infirmary door slammed open, the sharp sweetness of Emily's perfume mixed with the metallic stench of blood. Michael's uniform hem was splattered with mud, and his voice was cold and harsh. "Julia Lane, do you have any idea how much damage your actions caused to the unit?" Emily stepped forward and waved her bandaged finger in front of him, her expression wounded and delicate. She didn't need to say anything, just a shake of her head, all meek and misunderstood. I never expected that the first thing Michael Liu would do upon returning was confront me. "Captain Liu, what are you trying to say? If it weren't for your faulty intel, we wouldn't have lost so many of our comrades." His voice burned with anger. "Emily says the route map used by the performing troop was given by you. That map led them into the wrong area. If we hadn't split forces to rescue them, who knows what would have happened." So Emily had made the first move, and she twisted the story to frame me. I forced myself to stay composed. "Captain Liu, whether or not I gave that route map is still unclear. But don't you think you owe us an explanation for why the operation was delayed?" His expression flickered, but only briefly. He quickly straightened, indignant. "I did it to save lives. If it weren't for you..." I closed my eyes. For one final time, I tried to pull him back from the edge. "Captain Liu, what if I told you Emily lied, and may even be suspected of espionage? Would you believe me? I swear on my honor as a reconnaissance officer, there isn't a single lie in what I said. I deliberately pulled back the blanket to show him my leg, already soaked through the bandages with blood. Michael Liu's eyes were filled with disappointment and disgust. So it's true, Julia Lane. Just like Emily said, you'd go as far as self-harm to win my sympathy. I know you've always had a bias against Emily, had misunderstandings about her and me, but the unit has already suffered heavy losses, and you're still here stirring up jealousy, using injuries to seek attention? Do you have any sense of collective responsibility at all? Jealousy. Misunderstanding. His accusations hit me like a wave of cold water crashing over my head. I stared at him, and at the fragile, innocent-looking Emily standing at his side. My vision blurred with dizziness. I have evidence, I said, my voice trembling. There's something wrong with Emily. Right on cue, Emily let out a soft gasp and staggered back, as if terrified by my accusation. Evidence? Michael took a step forward and raised the paper bag he was holding. You mean this? A battery fragment? And a footprint? You think you can just make things up whenever you want? His voice grew sharper, louder. I can't believe you've stooped to this. Even now, you're trying to pin everything on Emily? She's just a defenseless member of the performance troupe. She nearly died out there and you accuse her of betrayal? I hadn't realized he had taken the evidence from headquarters. My heart twisted. Tears spilled uncontrollably down my cheeks. You're going to regret this, Michael Liu. But these weren't tears of self-pity. They were tears of fury, of heartbreak, of complete disillusionment with the man I had once loved. Emily shivered slightly in his arms, her voice soft, sickly sweet. Michael, don't be mad at Julia. She's just a woman, and your fiancé. It's only natural she'd want to feel close to you, maybe a little more involved. I'm sure she didn't mean anything by it. Her fake compassion was like oil thrown onto fire. Michael took a deep breath, as if finally making up his mind. Guards, he barked at the nearby MPs, take Julia Lane back to headquarters. Turn her over to the investigation unit. I suspect she didn't just make a tactical error. She may have. He didn't finish the sentence, but his eyes said it all. He suspected me of collusion, of treason. 2 military police stepped forward. Ignoring the blood seeping from my untreated wound, they lifted me onto a stretcher without a word. Meanwhile, Michael gently protected Emily with one arm as if she were made of glass. I suddenly let out a bitter laugh, tears still running down my face. So this was the man I had loved. The man I had once dreamed of marrying. And now, for the sake of another woman, he couldn't wait to cast the blame on me and wash his hands of it all. The stretcher hit the ground with a dull thud. They carried me into a tent repurposed as a makeshift interrogation room. Outside, soldiers from the 2nd Battalion had already gathered, demanding harsh punishment from the inspection team. Julia Lane, said one of the officers, we're from the Military Region Inspection Unit. Regarding the failure of this suppression operation, and your alleged involvement, we need your full cooperation. I clenched my jaw through the pounding pain in my leg and took a deep breath. Of course, I will report everything exactly as it happened. We've already received a detailed report before you arrived, one of them said. I stand by every word in that report, I replied firmly. Everything in it comes from what I saw with my own eyes and experienced myself. I closed my eyes, and one by one, I relived the nightmare, discovering the battery fragment, the unusual footprint, trying to warn Michael Liu but being ignored, him delaying the operation to save Emily, seizing my radio, and finally, me falling into the ravine and the image I saw just before losing consciousness. I recounted it all, word by word, with clarity and precision. Sweat beaded on my forehead from the pain, but it was nothing compared to the crushing ache in my chest. Just then, the tent flap was suddenly yanked open. Michael Liu stormed in, dragging Emily behind him. Commander, sir, Michael saluted. Regarding the accusations against Julia Lane, I have something to say. She's always had issues with Emily. Emily dabbed the corners of her eyes with a handkerchief. Comrades of the inspection unit, she said gently. I don't know why Julia Lane would say such things about me. I was just unlucky enough to run into the enemy. The inspection officer raised his hand, cutting her off, then turned his gaze to Michael Liu. Captain Liu, we'll hear your explanation later. But right now, the report in our hands contains detailed logs of time, location, and every instance of inaction on your part. Specifically, your decision to prioritize rescuing Emily after receiving a distress signal, instead of executing the original encirclement plan, led to missing the best operational window. This also contradicts parts of your initial field report. You need to clarify this. Michael's face went ghostly pale. He opened his mouth, trying to speak, but seemed unsure where to even begin. Seeing this, Emily quickly jumped in. It was because the enemy fire was too intense at the spot where we, the performers, were pinned down. Michael had no choice. He had to act. "Comrade Emily," one of the inspectors interjected, "our records show that you had alternative communication methods with Captain Liu at the time. Is that correct? Also, are you sure the enemy's firepower was actually concentrated on your location and not part of a setup?" Emily's eyes flickered with panic. I don't know anything about a setup. I just remember how dangerous it was." Michael looked at her shaken expression, then stiffened his neck and stepped forward. "Commander, sir. The situation was urgent. I may have made an error in judgment, but my decision to alter the deployment was purely to save lives. As for the rest of the claims in Julia Lane's report, they're personal speculation and slander." He was still trying to defend her, still denying everything. I stared at them, at their shaky explanations full of holes, and all I felt was a cold, empty silence inside me. Just then, a communication soldier burst into the tent, panting. "Commander, emergency intel. Recon units in Zone 7 have spotted a large enemy buildup. Suspicious movements suggest a major operation is imminent." Everyone inside the tent immediately grew tense. Zone 7. That was one of the locations I had earlier suspected the enemy might retreat toward. Michael seized the moment like a drowning man grabbing for a lifeline. He took a step forward and said, "Commander, I request permission to lead a recon team into Zone 7 to investigate. Let me atone for my mistakes. Please give me a chance." The inspection officer hesitated briefly, then finally said, "All right, Michael Liu, I'll give you this chance. But remember, this time you must succeed. If you fail, you'll be held accountable for everything." "Yes, sir, I will complete the mission." Michael straightened his posture and walked briskly out of the tent, not even sparing a glance at me or Emily. Emily stared at his retreating figure with a complicated expression, her fingers subconsciously twisting the edge of her coat. I lay on the stretcher, listening to the sound of the emergency assembly call outside. But inside, I felt nothing. He's heading out to do reconnaissance, to earn redemption. But that has nothing to do with me anymore. Still, Zone 7. The enemy's movements. Could it be that my earlier suspicions were right? The fragments, the footprints, Emily's unusual behavior, everything pointed toward a much deeper conspiracy. If Michael really did uncover something on this mission... I was taken back to the hospital, but while they were changing my dressing, I heard Emily's voice outside. "Michael already went to Zone 7. Tell the boss to relocate, now." I clenched my teeth and forced myself upright. Pain exploded from the wound in my right leg, but I couldn't let that stop me. Michael was on his way to Zone 7, and it might be a trap. Supporting myself against the wall, I limped to the tent's entrance. The sky had already darkened. Under the dim light, I saw Emily sneak into the temporary medical tent set up in the field. I followed quietly, staying low. Through the gap in the fabric, I saw her expertly remove the back panel of an accordion, revealing a hidden radio detonator. My heart nearly stopped. This was the truth. Emily wasn't just a traitor. She was still actively transmitting enemy intel. I quickly tore a strip of cloth from the inside lining of my shirt. I pulled out the pencil I always carried with me and scribbled a quick distress message. I folded it tightly and stuffed it into the supply crate next to the medical tent, one of the emergency drop points I had arranged with the communications unit. Ignoring the pain in my leg, I clenched my jaw and followed Emily, who had already slipped out of the tent. She clearly wasn't familiar with the terrain and stumbled through the darkness, heading blindly toward the mountains. But I had run countless missions in this area. I knew the land like the back of my hand. Up ahead was a naturally formed sinkhole surrounded by dense thorns. If I timed it right, I could lead her straight into it. "Stop," I shouted. Emily turned and saw me. Instead of panicking, she exhaled in relief. "Julia Lane following me won't change anything. I've done nothing wrong." I heard everything, I said, slowing my pace deliberately. That message you just sent? I intercepted it. That's impossible, she shrieked, backing up in alarm. Now, I lunged forward with all the strength I could muster. Startled, she stumbled back, and her foot slipped into the sinkhole. But in her panic, she grabbed onto my uniform, dragging me down with her. With my injured leg, I couldn't brace myself. We both fell into the pit. A wave of searing pain made my vision blur, but I refused to let go. I clamped my hand around her wrist and used the rope on my uniform to bind her tightly. Then I fumbled through her belongings and wrenched the small radio detonator from her grasp. This was my only chance. I had to send the message to Michael Liu before the enemy completed their relocation. You're insane, Emily screamed, struggling to wrestle the detonator back. You don't even know how to use that. I'm a reconnaissance officer, I hissed. I can operate this thing in my sleep. I quickly adjusted the frequency and began transmitting. Emily lunged at me, trying to grab the device. In the cramped space, we struggled violently. Her nails dug deep into my arm, tearing my skin, while my wounds split open from the strain, soaking the bandages in blood. But I couldn't stop, not now. I had to get the message out, even if it was the last thing I did. I clutched the detonator close and let my fingers fly over the keys. You really think Michael will believe you? Emily spat. He never loved you. He's only ever trusted me. I ignored her venom and focused on the transmission. Suddenly, I heard a familiar response frequency. It was Michael's. My heart leapt. Abort mission. But before I could react, Emily slammed her hand onto the keypad, punching out a string of jumbled characters. My heart clenched. She was still trying to interfere. Then it hit me. Michael and I had used an old cipher in the past. Maybe, just maybe, he'd remember it. I keyed in the message slowly, clearly. Zone 7. Trap. Evacuate immediately. Emily didn't understand what I was doing, but she sensed something was wrong. She renewed her efforts, trying to snatch the detonator back. I shielded it with my body, and my wound tore open again. Pain exploded through my body, blinding me. You ruined everything, Emily shrieked. If it weren't for you, I'd already be gone, with the money. I gritted my teeth, still gripping her wrist tightly. Then, from the distance, a barrage of gunfire erupted, sharp, intense. Sirens followed, piercing through the night. Emily froze, body stiff as a board. I knew that sound. The enemy had been intercepted mid-transfer by our troops. What's happening? She whispered, her voice hollow. The timing's wrong. Her face drained of color. I reached again for the detonator, trying to re-establish contact with Michael, to tell him the enemy's exact position. But Emily sprang forward, snatched the device from my hands, and hurled it to the ground. It shattered on impact. You're not sending anything, she screamed. Then she stomped on it, again and again, until it was nothing but crushed metal. If I'm going down, then so are you. You're not getting out of this either, Emily hissed. I stared at the shattered detonator, my heart in a panic. I was trapped here, unable to confirm whether our soldiers had escaped the danger zone. Meanwhile, Emily's expression grew more manic by the second, like a cornered animal about to strike. The gunfire in the distance grew more intense. I could hear exchanges from at least 2 directions now, and what worried me most was that the sounds were moving closer. Fast, suddenly, a harsh beam of light from a flashlight pierced through the darkness. Then, a gun barrel pointed directly at me. It's her! Emily shrieked in a trembling, almost flirtatious tone. She's a scout. She knows all your plans. I'm just a civilian. I don't know anything. The men, clearly enemy soldiers, understood the word scout. Their gazes sharpened instantly, hungry and predatory, like wolves spotting prey. Then, a burst of shouting, followed by a much heavier round of gunfire, erupted from the left flank. This time, I heard it clearly. It was our forces. Mixed in with the gunfire were sharp, distinct bursts from submachine guns. The enemies at the top of the pit immediately turned pale and aimed their weapons toward the direction of the sound. Over there! Move! A familiar voice shouted from the forest. Commanding. Urgent. Undeniable. It was Michael Liu. The enemy soldier leading the group jerked his rifle up and aimed it right at me. My pupils contracted, and on pure instinct, I rolled to the side. Bang! Emily, lacking any military instinct, didn't move fast enough. A bullet tore through her shoulder. Blood spurted out, her face went deathly pale, and she let out a scream of agony. Michael jumped down into the pit with several soldiers. He saw me instantly, his face stricken with guilt and panic. Rushing over, he gathered me into his arms, his voice trembling. "Julia, are you okay? Where are you hurt?" I gritted my teeth and didn't speak. The soldiers swiftly secured the scene, tying up the captured enemies. One of them quickly bandaged both my wound and Emily's shoulder. Michael carried me out of the pit, holding me tight. I saw several soldiers carrying stretchers, the wounded lying motionless on them. My heart sank. The losses this time, they weren't small. Emily was dragged along by 2 soldiers. Her face was white, her eyes shifty. She kept stealing glances at Michael when she thought no one was looking. After we returned to camp, I was taken to the military hospital once more. The noise outside was chaotic, but my mind was calm, maybe too calm. Everything had finally become clear. Emily had betrayed her country for personal gain, selling out national intelligence without hesitation. And Michael? He had been deceived by her so easily, willing to put his men at risk just to protect her. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay composed. I had to recover quickly. Then I would uncover everything. I owed that to the comrades we had lost. Over the next few days, I focused on healing. Michael came to visit me every day, his concern evident. He seemed to want me to plead for Emily. "Julia, I'm sorry, it's my fault. I was such a fool," he said. "That day I led the enemy to shoot at you. I swear I didn't know what was going on. If I had, I never would have let it happen." He squeezed my hand, his voice thick with emotion. Maybe Emily was deceived too. She's always been kind. I stared at him coldly, saying nothing. "I know you probably hate me right now," he continued, "but please believe me. I truly care about you. I'm gonna get to the bottom of everything. I owe you that. I've already filled out a new marriage application. Let's get married right here, in the base. What do you say?" I gave a cold laugh. "No need." I met his eyes, unflinching. "Didn't you say once, if Emily hadn't joined the performance troupe, I'd never have been your fallback option? Well, now that she's out of the picture, there's no need to settle. Go marry your perfect match." Michael Liu was about to say something when a soldier stepped into the room. "Captain Liu," he reported, "Emily's awake. She's asking to see you." Michael glanced at me. He hesitated for a moment, then followed the soldier out. I knew Emily would do everything in her power to talk her way out of this. And Michael, so indecisive, so easily swayed, could very well fall for her lies again. Fighting through the pain, I got out of bed. I had to move, not just for myself, but for the comrades who had fallen. I needed to make things right. I went straight to the inspection team and gave them a full verbal report of everything I had witnessed. At first, Emily tried to deny everything. With tears streaming down her face, she clutched her injured shoulder and accused me of attacking her, using her wound to gain sympathy and paint herself as the innocent victim. But against the hard evidence, all her lies collapsed. The communications equipment we had seized from the captured enemy clearly contained logs of her exchanges, messages she had sent, and intelligence she had provided about our border regiment's operations. In the face of such undeniable proof, Emily was finally speechless. Then, trembling, she admitted everything. She confessed that she had been captured during a performance mission and, in order to save herself, had revealed the details of our anti-bandit operation. Tears streamed down her face as she begged Michael to intercede on her behalf, pleading that she had no choice, that she had only done it to survive. Michael stood to the side, his expression ashen, lips tightly pressed, saying nothing. He had finally realized the truth, that the woman he had loved had deceived and used him completely. When his eyes met mine, they were filled with pain, remorse, and shame. During my recovery, I submitted a formal request to be transferred. The climate in the Southwest wasn't suitable for my condition, and I needed to heal somewhere I could actually breathe. The commander approved my request. He also handed me a commendation. "Comrade Julia Lane," he said, "on behalf of the entire border regiment, I thank you. And I apologize. The failure in our deployment caused your serious leg injury and ended your career in reconnaissance. If you ever need anything, come to me." Michael found out and stormed into my quarters just as I was packing the last of my few belongings. "Julia, what are you doing? Where are you going?" His voice cracked. "I know I was wrong. I really do. Please, give me one more chance. Let's start over. Captain Liu," I interrupted coldly. Do you really think that's possible? His face froze. When you left me in that sinkhole to die, because you chose to go save your true love instead. When you took my radio, my only chance to call for help, just so you could respond to her distress signal. When you knew I was in danger and still delayed the operation, costing the lives of our fellow soldiers. Do you think there's any future left for us? Each word landed like a nail, driven deep into his chest. His face went white, lips trembling, unable to form a single word in reply. I looked at him, my gaze falling on his chest, where he used to wear a pocket watch. I gave that back to you, I said softly. The day you ran past me to catch Emily in your arms, I threw it at you. That was the end of us. Instinctively, he reached for his chest. It was empty. His pupils shrank, his face drained of color, as though he had suddenly remembered something terrible. He bolted out the door, like a man possessed, as if trying to find something. Later I heard that the watch, his grandfather's, had been damaged in the chaos. Whether it was lost when he embraced Emily, or shattered in the firefight, no one knew. The crystal face was cracked, the hands bent and frozen. It was irreparably broken. The watch meant everything to him. It had been handed down by his grandfather. He searched the battlefield like a madman, scouring every corner until, finally, he found it, twisted and shattered. He spent days begging favors from anyone who could help, eventually tracking down a master watchmaker who carefully repaired the broken timepiece. But what did it matter? By the time my injuries had stabilized and my transfer was officially approved, I didn't tell anyone. I left that place quietly, without a word, without looking back. I boarded the train heading north, watching the familiar scenery of the border retreat past the window, frame by frame. There was no lingering attachment in my heart, only a sense of release. I heard that when Michael Liu found out I had left, he went completely mad. He rushed to the train station like a man possessed, sprinting down the platform in a panic. But he didn't catch up to me in time. He didn't get the chance to say anything to make me stay. What greeted him wasn't my change of heart, but several stern-faced members of the military inspection unit and a pair of cold handcuffs. "Comrade Michael Liu," one of them said, "based on further confessions from Emily and the results of our investigation, you are suspected of deliberately delaying the 10-7 anti-bandit operation for personal reasons, causing significant losses to our forces. You'll need to cooperate with the investigation." Maybe it was only at that moment that he truly understood. What he had lost wasn't just me. He had lost his honor as a soldier, his future, and everything he once took pride in. He paid the ultimate price for his indecision and foolishness, and none of it had anything to do with me anymore. Back in the north, I was assigned to a new unit. The familiar surroundings, the familiar northern accents, they allowed my nerves, strained for so long, to finally relax just a little. I thought I had left the past behind completely. But then a package from the border arrived in my hands. I opened it. Inside lay a silver pocket watch, fully restored, its hands gleaming coldly under the sunlight. Beside it sat a thick envelope. The handwriting on the envelope was unmistakable. Michael Liu's. I didn't even open the letter. I only looked at the watch. Once, it had symbolized sweetness and promise. Now, it was nothing but a painful reminder of betrayal. No matter how perfectly it was repaired, the cracks would always remain. I picked up a pen and wrote one line on the return slip. Refused. Returned to sender. Then I resealed the box and handed it back to the courier. Everything that had happened was dead to me, like yesterday's ashes. I wouldn't look back. I would keep walking forward,